Welcome to another edition of Ask Ron. You have questions, I have answers. So, first question comes from Mayor Bodybuilding. Pretty sure I've answered this before, but it's a very common question. What got you into bodybuilding? It's usually like the first question I ask people in the Ron line interviews because we all have a different path. We all got here slightly different ways for different reasons, different motivations. For me, I was never an athletic kid. I was never a big kid. I was usually the shortest or almost the shortest kid in my grade, slightly built, very little coordination. I tried a few sports, sucked at all of them until I found wrestling toward the end of high school, which was, at that point, it was kind of too late. But, I remember from a pretty early age having a vague idea of wanting to be bigger and stronger. Back then, we used to watch wrestling on Saturday mornings, and it was World Wrestling Federation in its early stages when it was more of a regional thing. And I used to watch that live from the Boston Garden on Saturday mornings, and the wrestlers were larger than life. So the first big muscular guys I ever saw that sort of motivated me were pro wrestlers. I remember seeing guys like Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Superstar Billy Graham, Ivan Putski. There were some pretty built guys back then. Not as built as they would get later on when the federation went big time and international and became a billion-dollar industry. That's when you started having really great physiques in it. But even as a kid, to me, being short and thin, that's what appealed to me. I would love to have been bigger and stronger and more physically imposing. But it didn't click to me that there was a way to do that, really. And I'd say a lot of it had to do with the LeBlanc brother and sister, siblings. Jerry was 2 years older than me, and he was one of those people that would try something for a while and be really good at it and then get bored and try something else. He did it with a few different things, and one of them was bodybuilding or weight training / bodybuilding. So he went through that little phase, and he had really good genetics. He wasn't a big kid, Jerry, but great shape, naturally very lean, vascular. And he had all the magazines at his house. And I remember one time just flipping through the magazines and looking through them and being very impressed with, at that time it would have been around probably like 1984 or so. So looking at the Olympia lineup in like Muscle and Fitness or whatever it was called. Yeah, it was called Muscle and Fitness back then. And just being in awe of those guys. I had seen Pumping Iron once when I was probably, like 9 years old, late at night on PBS, and it didn't really register with me because to me they didn't seem real. It was, there was no CGI back then, but to me, looking at Arnold and Franco and Ferrigno, those guys, it was just my 9-year-old brain. It just didn't register. They were like aliens to me, and even though I saw them training and everything in the movie, it didn't stick with me. But the LeBlanc brother and sister. So Jerry was 2 years older than me. Nancy was 1 year older than me. I idolized Jerry, and I had the most massive crush on his sister Nancy, who was a year older than me. Nancy, she was very interested in two celebrities. Arnold Schwarzenegger was one. She had a big poster of him as Conan on her wall, and a wrestler by the name of Kerry Von Erich out of Texas. You older guys who follow wrestling remember the Von Erich brothers out of Texas. I think there were 4 or 5 of them. They all died. It's very tragic. But Kerry, to me, was the one that I really wanted to be like the most. He had long rock star hair, and he looked like a movie star. He had this massive jaw. He looked like almost like Brock Sampson from that cartoon, the Something Brothers. Anyway, he was jacked, and he was a great-looking guy, and he just, I wanted to be like Kerry. And Arnold, obviously, by this time, I knew Arnold had been a champion bodybuilder, and I saw Jerry working out. So around 13, I believe it was, the Christmas, I turned 13, and that Christmas I had asked for a weight set, and my parents got it for me, and I started training at home with a little manual, trying to do whatever I could with the little DP or Marcy bench, whatever it was. It wasn't a Weider bench. So a lot of bench presses, a lot of curls. I think it had like a leg extension thing, but it didn't occur to me to train legs. But in the year after that, I started training. By the time I was in 9th grade, I started training every day after school with my friend Paul Poirier. in his attic, which was very, very hot in the warmer months, very, very cold in the colder months. But we trained. We loved it. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing. So clueless. And he only had like 4 albums that we listened to over and over again. It was AC/DC, Back in Black, Aerosmith, Toys in the Attic, Led Zeppelin 4. I can't even remember what the other one was. It might have been Bad Company, the greatest hits one that they had, 4 from 8 or 8 from 10 or whatever it's called. Anyway, so, I didn't start really getting good results because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and puberty was real late for me. I would say I fell into bodybuilding proper in the fall of 1987, right after I turned 18, or actually it was right before I turned 18. So I graduated high school in 87 at 17, turned 18 in September, while I was out in UC Santa Barbara for my freshman year of college. And I had bought, one of the first supplements I ever bought had been that summer. It was one of the Weider weight gain shakes, like Dynamic Weight Gain or Weight Shaper, or some crappy supplement. Everything back then was crap, trust me. You guys don't know how good you have it now with the supplements, how good they taste and how effective they are compared to like the 80s. We had such garbage. But anyway, there had been a little thing on there where you could send away for a free copy of Flex magazine if you bought this jug of weight gain powder, protein powder, whatever the hell it was. So I sent away and I forgot all about it. And my mom would forward my mail to me, any mail that came to me, which wasn't a lot, but she would have it forwarded to me out in California. And I think I had been at UCSB. I drove down there with all my stuff and settled in. And maybe 2 days later, 3 days later, that magazine came. And wow, that was it. Once I opened up and flipped through that magazine, I was done. I was hooked. I wanted to look like those guys. And I remember that first issue, there was a big spread of Sean Ray, who had just won the Junior Nationals. He wasn't even a pro yet. He would win the Nationals and turn pro a couple months later. I remember seeing like Lee Haney, Rich Gaspari, Gary Stridham, Lee Labrada, Barry DeMay, Mike Quinn. There were some amazing stars back then, and to me, they were all just gods among men. I couldn't believe people could actually look that good. And I decided I was going to look like that no matter how hard I had to work, no matter what it took. And I had no idea that there were drugs involved. At that point, I was clueless, so clueless. But that's when I would say I really became a bodybuilder, because from that moment on, I had decided that that's what I wanted to look like, and I was going to compete. And, I had this vague notion that I was going to be a pro and all this. I just turned 18 years old. I was a little dope. So that's how I became a bodybuilder. And right after I got that magazine, I went to the school bookstore, and I think I just bought all my textbooks for my classes like the day before. But I went back to the bookstore the next day to see what they had for bodybuilding books. And they had the Nautilus bodybuilding book by Arthur Jones and the Nautilus Advanced Bodybuilding book by Ellington Darden, PhD. And I bought both of them, but I read the advanced one first because I was in a rush. And I immediately got brainwashed into Nautilus and joined the school Nautilus room and did all my training on Nautilus that year, even though the school had a free weight gym, which was really cramped. It was like in a big, giant, double-wide trailer, basically, with no heat and very, very rudimentary equipment, but it was always packed. I did venture in there a couple times to try it out, and it was just packed. I believe the student body was like 50,000 kids at that time, so you can imagine how packed that little double-wide trailer was. Okay, so that's enough about how I got into bodybuilding. Fabian Gym Food, my man, he asks, what is your opinion on online coaches in regular? I think he means in general. Can it be beneficial to get one involved in your training nutrition even when you're already experienced? For me, it's getting out of the comfort zone versus no magic tricks. Hope you know what I mean. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I actually do online coaching. I work with some clients. Now, I don't do a ton of it because I'm kind of busy, obviously. But I think online coaches, even if you're very experienced, it can be helpful to have someone write you up a different diet, a different workout, and hold you accountable to it and do check-ins with you to see how you're doing on it, and to constantly revise the programs, because we're all creatures of habit. We all fall into patterns and routines. I'm as guilty of it as anybody else. And a lot of times you're doing these things over and over again and not getting results, but you know, like that bird that keeps flying into the window pane. We just keep doing it anyway because we don't know any better. And we keep just assuming the next time is going to work. You know, the next time we do that workout that we've done 10,000 times, it's going to deliver results. So I do believe that, you know, any new type of routine, any major changes to your training are going to have an impact. They're going to lead to results because they're going to give a different type of stimulation to the muscles, to the neural pathways, all that stuff. So getting a brand new routine with exercises that maybe you haven't done in a long time or never did at all, and on, you know, left to your own devices, you never would. You know, there's exercises that I can't do because of injuries, limitations, but there's others that I don't do, and there's no reason I don't do them. I don't like them. I don't think about doing them. They just don't occur to me. But they would occur if I was working with a coach. They would probably occur to them, or they would have me doing them a different way, something different that I'm not doing. And, you know, being as advanced as I am, I'll be 49 next month. Don't I say this on every Ask Ron? I think I do. So I've been training. This will be 35 years of training consistently for me pretty soon. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how much more I could do regardless of the routine or that, but I think a lot of you guys out there, you're not at your full potential yet. There's hope for you. You could still get bigger, stronger. You're not all tapped out yet. And I think switching up what you're doing in a way that would never occur to you would probably help you out, help you get closer to that full potential. And, you know, yeah, there are no magic tricks. There's nothing new under the sun. Anytime you see something on Instagram or YouTube, someone showing a new variation or blah, 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 it's usually, I've seen it before somewhere. Maybe I saw it as long ago as 10, 20 years ago, someone doing it. There's nothing new under the sun. That's not to say that once in a great while someone doesn't come up with something completely original that no one ever thought of before, but for the most part, it's like movie plots, songs. It's all kind of been done before, but we tend to forget a lot of it too. You know, I'm someone that's been around so long, and I've done so many types of training and exercises. I'm one of those people that almost I forget more than I know at times. So I do believe online coaches can definitely be useful. I would want to see some kind of track record, regardless of what you're using them for. I'd want to talk to a couple of their clients, or at least see some good testimonials that are from real people, because everyone and their grandmother's a coach now. There's a lot of people I know I've seen online that they've done one show, maybe they placed like 5th in the novice division, and all of a sudden they're coaching. They're offering meal plans, they're writing up workouts, and they've been doing this for a couple of years at most. You know, God bless them. And, you know, they're getting clients, they're getting people to pay for it. So, but I would want someone who's a little more advanced than that. You know, if I was paying someone, it would be someone on the level of a John Meadows for my workouts. Somebody like that, not some kid who's just new to the game. I'm sorry, no offense. What else did he want to know? Okay, that was it. Overlooked wants to know, do you think the physiques of the 90s look better? And if yes, why? Okay, I know I harp on this a lot, and I sound like one of those grouches that thinks everything was better back in the old days. And I'm going to put a twist on it. It's not that the physiques are necessarily better because of any special thing that they were doing better. Like I'm not one of those people who thinks everybody used to train hard and nobody trains hard today. That's bullshit. There are plenty of people now, plenty of pros now, or top amateurs too. They train their asses off. They train as hard as anybody did back in the day. It's ridiculous to say that nobody trains hard anymore. You know, people say, well, nobody trains like Ronnie Coleman. No, that was an anomaly. Very few people have that type of strength, for one thing. That's the major thing. Most people just aren't that strong to be able to do what he did. There are a few guys out there. If you see, you know, Dusty Hanshaw and Meadows, there's plenty of people out there you can find that have videos out there to show you. There's still some hard training, strong guys out there for sure. But it goes back to something Dorian said. He said the 90s was like a perfect storm. We had so much talent all at once, and it was just really an accident. It wasn't that these guys, like I said, were doing anything special or different. You just had a lot of guys with awesome genetics competing. Like, look at this. This is a short list I made. Sean Ray, Dorian Yates, Kevin Levrone, Ronnie Coleman, Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier, Paul Dillette, Nasser El-Somebody, Lee Priest, Vince Taylor, Mike Francois, Aaron Baker, Charles Claremont, Milo Sarshev. Even Lee Labrada was still competing up until like the mid-90s. We had a lot of great guys in the 90s competing. And, they kept their waists smaller for the most part because they weren't all using a ton of insulin and GH back then. Not to say that GH wasn't starting to make its rounds. Of course it was, but nothing like what we see today with the guts. And which I think that's also affected the crispness and the muscle separation and condition, that the heavy reliance on insulin. But I really think the physiques of the 90s were better only because it was some sort of coincidence. We just had a lot of great talent around at the same time. We still have great competitors today, obviously. Look at the Mr. Olympia. We have guys like Phil, Sean Roden, William Bonac, Dexter Jackson, Rolly Winkler, Nathan, on and on. I mean, some amazing talent is always been at the top of the food chain in pro bodybuilding. It's just that the 90s was a special time because of coincidence. Nothing more than that, as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, I don't want to shit on the guys of today and saying they don't train hard and they all rely on drugs and this and that. No, there's plenty of guys out there who train their asses off still. There always have been, there always will be. The core of this is great genetics and hard work. So you're always going to have the people at the top with great genetics who work hard. Some of them don't have to work as hard as others, as far as maybe they don't train quite as hard as some of the other ones do, but they're all at that level. So what does it matter? Okay, Glenn Hill, 68, is going to close this out with 5 questions. I'll try to be brief on each of them. Now the Olympia lineup is known. Who do you have placing 1 through 5 in the open and the 212? I don't make predictions. I think it's ridiculous because we don't know. Predictions are based on everybody showing up at 100% peak form, which almost never happens. Someone's always a little bit off, blurry, waterlogged, or they're flat, or then you have guys that nobody was even thinking about, or nobody expected to come in looking as great as they did. I mean, great example is 2001 Mr. Olympia. Jay Cutler showed up. Nobody expected Jay to do anything special because he had been like 8th or something the year before. He blew away everyone except for Ronnie, and he actually was leading Ronnie in the judging. Nobody saw Jay coming. Nobody expected anything out of that guy that year. Ronnie was like 7th or 8th in 97. Then 98, he showed up, first year working with Chad Nichols, just looking like an alien. And he blew away the show. Well, I shouldn't say blew away. Flex gave him a good run for the money, but he was so good that he beat Flex Wheeler, the guy that everyone expected and assumed would be Mr. Olympia once they heard Dorian was retiring. They're like, okay, great, now Flex can be Mr. Olympia. So predictions are ridiculous because of that. You don't know who's going to show up, what they're going to look like, and you get surprises, both good and bad. Sometimes people will be way better than you expected. Sometimes they disappoint you. You never know until they all get on stage and you see what they look like. That being said, I do believe Phil is most likely. If I was a gambling man, I'd put my money on Phil Heath winning Olympia title number 8. And I would put my money on Flex Lewis winning 212 Olympia title number 7. Beyond that, who knows? Rami was second last year. Will he be second again? Or will Bonac get ahead of him? Or could somebody else sneak up there? You never know. Same thing in the 212. Ahmad Ashkenani, 2 years in a row. Could somebody get ahead of him? Maybe Jose or David Henry or Kamal or Lunsford or any number of guys. Who knows? You never know. Like I said, when these guys all get out on stage, that's when I'll start calling what I think is going to happen. Until then, it's all just mental masturbation. It's all just bullshit. Number 2, you have now done over 100 Ronline interviews. Who have been your favorite? Who is the top of your list for must interview? I wouldn't say I had a favorite. I had a lot of ones I really enjoyed doing. I'd say the feather in my cap one was Phil Heath, and that's only because that was a guy that I couldn't interview for 13 years. 13 years he was under contract to AMI Weeder. I could not talk to that guy on record at all. And he was gracious enough to do the interview. Steve Bleckman contacted him, and we started talking, and we hooked it all up, and it happened. And yeah, that's the one I'm most proud of because it was the toughest to get. It was the longest one coming. Who are the one, my wish list, which was actually one of his next question was, have you ever tried to get Arnold to do a Ron line? Of course, my dream interview would be Arnold Schwarzenegger. I interviewed Arnold for the magazine a couple years back. Um, I wouldn't say it was so much an interview as a lecture because I had my list of questions. I didn't get to all of them. Arnold knew exactly what he wanted to talk about, and he controlled the interview very well, the conversation. I didn't get a lot of words in edgewise, and it's fine. It's fine. He's Arnold. He's incredibly busy man. He knew he had some points about different things, posing and the guts and direction of the sport. He had a lot of points he wanted to make, and I'm glad that he was able to make them. And everything he said was gold. I transcribed it all. We put it in the magazine. And it was great. But would I love to have more of a spontaneous interview with him, where he didn't always know what was coming next, and I could really ask some questions that maybe no one else has asked, or I would love to interview Arnold that way. That would be my dream Ron line interview. Absolutely, Arnold Schwarzenegger, no doubt in my mind. It would be very difficult to get, very difficult. The way I got the other one was through Jim Lorimer and his assistants. They helped set that up, obviously, and I was on call for like 3 weeks, where I was told that his assistant would call me when Arnold was just about ready, and I never knew when that call was going to come. So everywhere I went, I had my questions typed up on a piece of paper. I would have them, and I had my phone with me. And one day that I got the call, and it was his assistant, and he said, "You're going to get a call from a blocked number or something in 5 minutes. That's going to be Arnold. You have 30 minutes, so make the most of it," which I did. So yeah. Some other people that I definitely would love to have on. Jim Mannion. I talked to Jim at one of the shows earlier in the year. Toronto, we talked about it. Jim does not have Skype. JM, I think, was going to help him set it up. I need to get on that. I'd love to talk to Jim about how this all came to be, because the NPC and the IFBB and how they all sort of evolved over the course of the 70s and the 80s, and what role he played in that, and the directions of the sport and the different divisions. I have a lot of questions for Jim, and I know he wouldn't dodge any of them. And it wouldn't be a kiss-ass interview. I would ask some questions that I really want to know the answers to. And with any of my Ron lines, before I start the interview, I always, off camera or before we record, I say, "Is there anything you definitely want to talk about? Is there anything you definitely don't want to talk about?" And if they say fair game, then I go, okay. And, it's always up to them if they say, "I'd rather not answer that," or pass. This isn't 60 Minutes. I'm not here to smear anybody or grill them like they're on a witness stand. At the same time, I don't want the interviews to be 100% fluff. I'm not a cheerleader. I'm a journalist. So I have to ask some tough questions sometimes. And I'm not trying to make anybody look bad ever. And that's never my goal. But I do feel a sense of duty, a sense of responsibility to the viewers to not just make these all fluff pieces, pumping up everybody's ego. Anybody can do that. And I see interviews like that, and I roll my eyes and like, okay, great, whatever. But they're not very interesting interviews to watch. Let's put it that way. And I want my interviews to have substance. I want them to be interesting. That's it. Do you watch the other bodybuilding output from channels like Nick's Power and RX? What do you think of them? I don't watch a lot of them. It's not because I have anything against them or I'm a snob or anything like that. I don't have a lot of time. I mean, I don't always even watch all of Muscle News Weekly, the Giles and Rosie. Sometimes they put out like an hour and 20-minute shows, and I watch bits and pieces of them. And I'm very busy with, I'm the senior writer for the magazine, so I do all the features and all the departments. I hate to say it, but I'm busy with meal prepping and training and all that dumb shit because I'm still a meathead. So I do watch some of it once in a great while, like Nick. I think Nick does a really good job. Nick, if you're listening, I've been trying to get you on a Ron line, and can't hear back from you. I think you'd be interesting to talk to. I think there's a lot of great content being put out there these days, for sure. YouTube has definitely opened up a whole new platform for people to comment and critique and share news and gossip and commentary, and I just don't have a ton of time to watch it. Otherwise I would, but I feel bad because a lot of times if I'm supposed to be working, if I know I have work to do and things that need to be getting done, and I'm sitting there watching some video or something for 45 minutes, and I know a lot of people watch these things when they're doing their cardio. I need music to do my cardio. That's the only thing that gets me going because I don't do that slow pace cardio. I keep a good pace actually. I sweat because that's all that seems to work for me. The longer, wimpier cardio doesn't do a whole lot for me if I'm trying to get lean. In the summer months, that's what I'm usually trying to do. Last question. Would you like to own your own gym? And if so, what type of gym would it be? Would I like to own my own gym? No, not really. I'd compare this to a boat. They always say the best boat is somebody else's boat. I'd love to have like a best friend who had this awesome yacht who threw sick parties all the time, and I could just show up and hang out on his boat and I wouldn't have to do a damn thing. I don't have to pay for the boat. I don't have to maintain the boat. I don't have to pay people to maintain or do anything for it. All the stuff. Same with the gym. I know owning a gym is a lot of work. I've looked into in the past owning gyms, of course. I think a lot of us have. It's a lot of financial responsibility. It's a lot of man hours when it's your place. You have to be there like all the time, at least to get it going, to get it established. And then you have to hire a staff that you can trust the rest of the time to keep it going. So I don't think I would need to own a gym. I'd like to have a friend that owned, some awesome gym that was smaller and just had every piece of equipment that I liked. So I guess it would probably have to be my gym if I'm picking out all the equipment. Like I've heard, I didn't get a chance to get over to Ben Pekulski's M140 gym, or is it MI40 in Tampa? But people were going there and coming back, and they were just like gushing over how incredible the equipment was, and everything felt so smooth and just hit the muscles perfectly. I go to a pretty decent gym now called Bayshore Athletic Club. Owner Tim is a good guy. That's a friend of mine, a mutual friend of other people, Tim Dowling, and they have awesome equipment. Not everything. No gym I've ever been to has had every little thing that I could possibly want. I think I'd have to go to like Oxygen Gym in Kuwait for that, right? But I've been to some great gyms. Bevan Steve's Powerhouse Gym in Long Island, where I've never had the chance to train there. I've always been there for functions. Bob Bonham, Strong and Shapely, ton of awesome equipment. Montanari Brothers Powerhouse Gym in New Haven, Connecticut. Awesome, huge gym with so much great equipment. I've been to a lot of places like that, but I don't think I'd want to own one because I don't want that responsibility. I just want to show up and train at an awesome gym. I don't want to own the place. What do I need to own the gym for? Yeah. So that is it. That's been this edition of Ask Ron. As always, thank you guys for your questions. Appreciate it very much. Thank you for watching these. Keep the questions coming. If you're not a subscriber to the MD YouTube page yet, please subscribe. And that's all. I'll talk to you guys next time.